The ancient Greek word phos means both fire and light, hence our word photons, because originally what we call fire, and used as a source of heating, was, to the ancients, an important source of light. Subsequent societies built on that tradition of burning solids by then using oil lamps or gas lamps. But then we moved our power sources miles away from home and allowed electrification to light up our homes. To alchemists, fire represented purification and change. But today, much more mundanely, we think of it as an essential for some homes or a nice visual crackling feature in others. The SAPPHIRE project looks at some of the environmental outcomes of fire as produced by solid fuel burning. And John Keogh is Secretary of Ireland's Solid Fuel Trade Group. John, thanks for coming to see us. It's been a long while since I've seen you last, but today we just want to clarify a few things about the Solid Fuel Trade Group. Could you tell us how it started and what its current job is?
Yes, well, good morning, John, and good to be back in UCC. The Solid Fuel Trade Group was started 21 years ago, actually, this year, back in 1994. And it was a coming together of the major suppliers of solid fuel in the marketplace in Ireland as a representative trade group, and a group that could engage with government and various government departments on subjects that were and continue to be of interest in the intervening 21 years. We have 10 member companies. They range from companies based in Ireland, and private companies, indeed public companies, semi-state companies, companies that are based in the UK, and a member who's based in Germany. Our members produce and supply a complete range of solid fuels, comprising coal products, lignite products, peat products, wood products. So all of the major solid fuels that are commonly used for residential heating. And over the course of the 21 years of the existence of SFTG, the group has engaged with the Department of Environment, indeed the EPA, and other government departments. And as a responsible group, taking its responsibilities seriously, it has engaged very positively over those years. And I might cite maybe one example of that, which was in 2002, when a voluntary agreement was made between government and the Solid Fuel Trade Group members to lower the sulphur content of coal down to 0.7% and to lower the sulphur content of other manufactured fuels down to 2%. So SFTG led that way. That has since become part of our legislation, and it's remarkably different in that context to the parameters that would exist in the UK, where the same limit would be 3 times higher, or 2%, for coal products.
Yeah. But burning fuel always causes air pollution, and so there are environmental challenges associated with that. On the other hand, obviously, as a society, we need energy so that provides something to make us comfortable. And in the end, society has a balance. Now, in the sort of regime between coal, solid fuel, oil, and gas burning, what are the advantages and disadvantages of using each upon society, really?
Well, I think it's quite a complex question, John. First of all, if we take gas isn't available to everybody, to every household. So there are restrictions on the availability of gas to use. And I think as well, we need to consider the costs of energy for heating, and people's circumstances in Ireland with regard to the cost of energy and the need for heat. It's established that we have a problem with fuel poverty in Ireland. over 1 in 5 households, over 20% of households suffer from fuel poverty. And fuel poverty is defined as the need to spend more than 10% of one's income on keeping oneself warm. There are other degrees of fuel poverty, but I'm just talking about basic fuel poverty. So you've got severe fuel poverty where people need to spend 15% of their income on heat, and extreme fuel poverty where people need to spend 20%. But if you just stick with the basic level of fuel poverty, which is spending more than 10%, 1 in 5 households are in that place currently. And this is recognised by government. It's recognised. Government run 2 significant schemes to support people who are suffering from energy poverty. That's the household benefits package and also the winter fuel allowance. And for people that are in that situation, their options aren't always easy for them. There may be capital costs associated with transforming one's dwelling from one fuel type to another, and there are ongoing costs. And in the ongoing costs, SEAI, the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, produces, a set of figures which illustrate the cost of fuel, different fuel types for heating. And consistently over many years, solid fuel, in terms of the energy content of the fuel, has been the lowest cost source of heat for people to heat their homes. Now, we accept that it's not just about the fuel and the energy contained within the fuel, but it's also about how that's used, what appliances that is used in. And in the case of solid fuel, whether it's used in an open fireplace or an enclosed stove. But the SEI help again in that context because they have established the efficiencies of use of different fuel types in Ireland. And when you look at those efficiencies and overlay those onto the basic fuel costs, you still find that solid fuel is the cheapest form of heat to heat one's home. Now, the other, I think, significant thing for people who are suffering from fuel poverty is that solid fuel is, if you want pay as you go, you buy it before you use it. Unlike a utility where you get a bill every 8 weeks, or indeed if you use other forms of heat, you may have to face a significant investment on a periodic basis. So it's both the lowest cost source of heat and also the easiest to budget in that way.
But as you mentioned there a bit earlier, it's not necessarily what you burn, it's the way that you burn it. So closed burning arrangement being better for pollution issues, certainly indoors. What do you think of that? And coal burning in a enclosed high burner rather than the sort of everyday fireplace that we see?
Yeah, it's absolutely correct that the efficiency of burning is much higher, maybe by a factor of 3 in an enclosed appliance, modern enclosed appliance, compared to a traditional open fireplace. And indeed, the SFTG members individually have been involved over many years in encouraging the installation of enclosed appliances for people to use solid fuel in. It has the twin benefits of it reduces the emissions, and it also increases the efficiency of burning, so you get more useful heat from the use of an enclosed appliance.
The environmental problems that are important to us are climate change and health from particulate matter that's thrown out. What do you think of the more new renewable types of solid fuel that are supposed to produce about 40% less carbon dioxide, maybe 80% less smoke? Do they have a place?
Yeah, I think there's a place in solid fuel for all different solid fuel types. But maybe we need to strip that back a little in the discussion, because there are basic elements of solid fuel. You've got coal, and I'll include in that for a moment anthracite. as a form of coal. You've got lignite, you've got peat, and you've got wood, which is a biomass, and you've got petroleum coke as well. Those are the five constituents of solid fuels, of all solid fuels. And solid fuels may be used then either straight as straight wood or straight coal or straight peat, or they may be blended as loose blends, or indeed manufactured into manufactured products, ground and manufactured products. And it's interesting when you pose the question about emissions and particulate matter, which is of particular interest now, that the Department of the Environment produced figures on the emissions from different fuel types, different solid fuel types, and show that the emissions of fine particulate matter, which is the principal area of concern, are twice, for a given level of heat, are twice that produced from the burning of bituminous coal. So we do have to ask ourselves the questions of, as we move through from one fuel type to another, what are the impacts of that on the environment? And that's why I think it's very interesting the work you're doing currently, because this, to my knowledge, is the first time that you will have done source attribution work, which will be able to attribute the particulate matter back to this original source, both within fuels for residential heating, but also to other sources, because as you know, there are other sources of particulate matter other than solid fuel. You could get it from cars, and particularly maybe diesel engines rather than petrol engines, and indeed any source of dust, or I think you've found even salt in your project in Enniscorthy. And you know, it's important that we have a scientifically based approach to determining what fuels are suitable and what ways of using those fuels are suitable in Ireland, because Ireland enjoys very good air quality in general terms, and the EPA produce a very detailed report on an annual basis, which shows that Ireland compares very favourably to its other European members states in terms of air quality. And indeed, with regard to the current EU limits, we, at all of the testing sites that EPA use, those limits are met in Ireland. Now, they have looked at other more stricter limits in terms of WHO guidelines, which might become applicable in the future. And if you look at those and the EPA test sites, there are some pointers there in the bigger cities where we may need to make some changes in order to meet those more stringent WHO guidelines.
Yeah, I think you have hit the nail on the head with us, is that the purpose of our job, the Project SAPPHIRE, is to provide a scientific foundation for policymakers to make decisions. And it's also for real people as well. So my final question really is, if I was building a new house, would you think it best that I use coal, or smoke less coal, but really should be called less smoke coal because it's not smoke free, oil, gas, or just forget it all and go to solar panels?
Well, that indeed is a complex question, John, and it depends, I guess, on where you live initially, both in terms of what choices you have, whether you have a choice that includes gas or whether you have a choice that includes bituminous coal, because as you know, bituminous coal is not burned in our towns and cities. So where you're building will determine that. We would obviously encourage everyone to build a home that would be efficient to heat. And that efficiency, if you take that in cost of heating, would be a combination of the energy efficiency of the home, the rating of the home, and also what and how you use the fuels you choose. I guess as the Solid Fuel Trade Group, we would like to see an inclusion of solid fuel in that home. We think solid fuel offers some other attributes in terms of a focal point within the home, in terms of local space heating, but we would encourage people to build and use the most efficient technology that's available.
Well, thanks, John. It's been great talking to you. Very informative, and it'd be a lot of use to our final movie.
Thank you,
Thanks.
John.